Time is 9 o'clock. A bomb has exploded on a railway line near Clapham Junction in South London this morning. Scotland Yard say that it was a small device and there are no reports of any injuries. The explosion happened just before 6 o'clock, shortly after police closed all mainline stations in the capital. Some stations, we understand, are now being reopened, but I understand that Waterloo and Victoria are still closed, as is Clapham.
Early morning at London's mainline stations, the police closed them down. In the background, ambulances stand by. This was a warning taken very seriously and acted upon with great speed. British Transport Police received a telephone message at 20 to 6 this morning saying that there were bombs at all mainline stations. Shortly afterwards, the stations were closed, as were all connecting underground stations. Then, just before 6 o'clock, eyewitnesses reported the explosion on the rails just outside Clapham Junction.
The train coming north from Norwood Junction stopped just past Clapham Junction, and an explosion went off just after the driver announced that there was a security alert at Victoria. The flash could be seen through the left of the windows, close to the front of the train. After that, some of the passengers started running from the front of the train to the rear. The train then reversed back to Clapham Junction, where everyone disembarked.
The police have confirmed the explosion was caused by a bomb, a small device, they say, which apparently injured no one. Meanwhile, the search continues of each rail terminus, and the capital's rail system remains severely disrupted. Clapham Junction is Britain's busiest rail intersection. BR say the junction and all other affected stations are likely to stay closed until midday. They're advising people to abandon rail travel into London until further notice. This morning's explosion comes 10 months after a man was killed by an IRA bomb placed at Victoria Station.
At Clapham Junction now is Mike Smart. Mike, good morning. To what extent are services now being restored?
They're not being restored at all. In fact, the junction, as you've just heard, is the busiest in Britain, and it's completely deserted of trains. The lines are completely empty. At the moment, there's an exhaustive search of the station still going on. The station's been closed now for 3.5 hours. I've just spoken to the senior officer in charge here. He says he can't give an estimate of when the station will be open again, but it certainly won't be for some considerable time.
Mike Smart at Clapham, thank you.
Well, we go now to Simon Lubin of the British Transport Police. Mr. Lubin, we understand that all but 2 of the mainline stations, being Waterloo and Victoria, are now open. Can you confirm that?
No, there are others closed. Cannon Street is still closed at the moment, but there are about 8 stations which are open, mostly north of the river.
So have any searches revealed any more devices at all?
Not at this stage, no.
Can you estimate when services will be getting back to normal this morning?
No, I think it's going to be a very difficult operation to get services back to normal.
And what about underground services? They're running as normally as possible, are they?
Underground services are running fairly normally. They've been running through the stations that are being searched, but they should be virtually not disrupted at all.
Simon Lubin, thank you very much indeed.
And I think also at Clapham Junction is Alex Kirby. Alex, can you give us any idea to what extent are services likely to be disrupted for a long time as a result of the damage to the tracks?
Well, I think for a very long time, simply because Clapham Junction is such an important point. The lines from Hampshire, the west of England, and Kent, Sussex and Surrey all come in there, as well as the South London suburbs. It's the choke point for going into Victoria and Waterloo, and I think until the station is clear, it's going to be a very long time before they can start moving again. Road traffic seemed to be going fairly normally for a Monday morning in the rush hour, which is not saying an awful lot, but I think it's going to be a long time before anyone can rely on being able to use the junction to get in or out of London.
So the advice to travellers is
stay at home, I think. Stay at home.
Alex Kirby, thank you very much indeed.
Other news briefly. In Egypt, the search has resumed this morning for more than 400 people still missing after yesterday's ferry accident in the Red Sea. Up to 260 people have been rescued so far and brought ashore at the Egyptian port of Safaga, near to where the ship sank. The Egyptian authorities have begun an investigation into how the accident happened.
Government ministers will meet representatives of the major banks and building societies today in an attempt to stop the growing number of house repossessions. About 80,000 homes have been repossessed this year. The government has already indicated that it believes that it's in the interests of the building societies not to repossess homes too quickly. That's it from us this morning. Obviously, if you're trying to travel into London, take what advice you can get from British Rail. Basically, the advice is not to attempt to travel by train. We'll be back at 6:30 tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.
Monday on 1, and joining Wogan, actor Alfred Molina and author Peter Mayle. Then at 7:30 in Watchdog, the women who risk their lives to look like this, and the pills that help them. At 8, a special team of TV stars competes against this year's top telly addicts.
The noise is for hit and miss.
I was a bing.
Ding!
And a...
At 8:30, Life Sense.
Although they labour for human benefit, the relationship becomes close.
Where are you going?
The tickled elephant responds with calls of pleasure.
At 9:30, part 1 of Deadly Intentions.
You know how much I love you. I couldn't live without you.
If Rick ever talked to me like that, I'd run like crazy.
Entertainment for Monday night on BBC One.